Well, welcome. You are in the right place if you are here for Riveter's webinar networking event. For those who know, you know. For those who don't know yet, you're about to know. Webinar networking is half webinar. We're going to be talking to Trevor Houston about networking for the job search. He's an absolute all-star, and we'll get to him in a moment. Flamingos on the shirt, that exudes confidence. And then the second half of our event is going to be the actual networking part of webinar networking. So we're going to break up into groups. We're all going to meet each other. We're all going to give each other tips and tricks for meeting more people. And folks come from all different backgrounds. I know Murat Aslan over here is an optics engineer. I know we have Doug comes from real estate. I know we have folks here from design. So people come from all over the place. So you'll be able to learn from each other, help each other grow. And that is really the exceptional part of the event. So can't wait for that. Just want to drop 3 notes before we get started. The first is if you have any questions throughout the event, drop them in the chat. I'm going to start it off. I'm going to get Trevor talking, which shouldn't be too hard. And then, but then the goal is for you guys to talk and for you guys to ask questions. So as you have questions, drop them in the chat, message me directly, and we'll make it super conversational. Second thing is would love for you guys to drop your LinkedIns into the conversation here. Everyone drop your LinkedIn message into the chat or send it to me directly. After that, I'm going to compile them all, put together a little spreadsheet, send it out to everyone. So you'll be able to connect with each other. Again, the goal here, the way you stand out on LinkedIn is you build a community of people who really care about you and who want to see more of your content, who give you those likes, those comments, those shares that push you up. And so we're all going to become each other's community in that capacity. So drop your LinkedIn in the chat. Thank you to the couple of people who are already doing that. I'll compile them all together so you don't have to worry about doing that yourself right now. The third thing before we get started is when we break up into the networking part of this session, I'm going to give you a challenge, a small challenge as always. So this time, I want you to think about the best coffee chat, the best conversation that you had in the last 2 weeks, and think about where it came from, what was so good about it, and what advice you would give to somebody who wants to replicate that. Because when we break up into groups, we're going to all go around and share those experiences that we had, where the networking conversation came from, why it was positive, things like that. And then you're going to help each other think about how can we make more of those conversations happen? How can we keep being successful in that? All right. So everyone, thank you. Once again, drop your LinkedIn in, drop your any questions you have in the chat. Have a great time. We're here to have a lot of fun. And then think about the best conversation of your last few weeks, and we'll get into it. So without further ado, super excited to welcome our guest today. Let's give a muted round of applause for Trevor Houston.
Yay, I can hear it all. It's awesome. I love the Zoom claps.
That's a feature I haven't figured out how to use yet, but I'm glad Tanya and Doug know what they're doing.
You haven't figured that one out yet? Oh, man, right down at the bottom of your screen, reactions. You got it.
Beyond my technical ability. Oh, there it is. I earned a heart. I earned a heart. I like it. Awesome. Trevor, here's where I want to start. So to get your background quickly, you started off as a financial advisor, but a few years ago, you started realizing that a lot of your clients, a lot of folks who are out of work, really need community networking more than anything. So you started the Who You Know network. Through that, thousands of people have come through Who You Know and found ways to network with each other, found skills and confidence to put out a lot of content on LinkedIn, to meet new people, and to really think about how people are going to help you get that next job. So with that context, I wanted to start here, Trevor. What do you think makes a good networker?
Oh, a good network it's community, right? It's relationships. A lot of you probably knew I was going to say that, but your network is your net worth. And if you have strong, valuable relationships, they'll open doors for you. They'll walk across the face of the earth for you. They'll do just so much for you. I'm so grateful for my network. I mean, they're just awesome. Just awesome, awesome, awesome people. But one of the things that I think is important in building a network, if you want to build a solid network that will open doors for you and carry you places, you need to pour yourself out and give, right? You have to give first. And that's really how I started building my network. I got into financial services into 2015 from the auto industry. And when I left the auto industry, I didn't really build a network at all. I didn't really have anything solid when I left. And I got into financial services, and that's when I started to build. And I was introduced to a group called Frisco Connect, which is a job networking group. And I immediately just kind of felt for these people because I knew they were hurting. A lot of these job seekers are going through a really, really hard time. And I just immediately felt empathy. And I looked at my business partner, Mark Elder, and I just said, hey, listen, we need to help. We need to volunteer. We need to like lean in and figure out what we can do to help. And so in the very beginning, you should see it. Like I still have them because I don't want to ever get rid of them. I have these folders. Like I would sit down over coffee with job seekers and just ask them, what are you going through? Like what do you need? What's the challenge? What's the struggle? What are you dealing with on a day-to-day? And I got so many different answers, but there was a common theme. The common theme was everybody was in the black hole, right? They weren't being seen. They were applying online and it wasn't going anywhere. And that every time they landed a job, it was through networking. And so here I am in a brand new industry. I'm learning networking, right? In my industry, I'm learning it. And here's all these job seekers that are kind of like a fish out of water because they're having to learn how to network too. So I'm like, you know what? Let's help them with that. Let's figure out how to support that network. How can we build a bridge? And the bridge that I built was between the recruiters and the job seekers, because it's so interesting. They're like trying to have a conversation, but they're just missing each other. It's like, what? You both want to talk to each other, but yet you're not. I don't get it. So I was the bridge, and I would go connect with all the recruiters on LinkedIn, and then I built my network so that I could bring them and introduce them to my network of job seekers. And so I think what's important when you're trying to build a network, figure out how you can add value to them, figure out how you can give. And since then, we've got all kinds of programs. We got so much thing. I mean, again, in the beginning, it was sitting down over coffee to figure out what their challenges were. Now we've got programs, we got a mobile app coming out, all kinds of things going on. It's awesome.
So, you mentioned give before you get, which is valuable advice, classic advice, and something I actually wrote a LinkedIn post about yesterday, the day before, saying, hey, we're going to have Trevor. His big thing is when you're thinking about networking, give before you get. And somebody commented on it and said, it's actually not so easy to give sometimes. Sometimes you're speaking with somebody and you just don't know what there is to give. You don't know, maybe your esteem is low at the moment. Maybe it's a totally different industry. Like I said, we got people in here who are super, super technical engineers. Like, how can I help them? I'm a marketer. When I feel like I don't know what to give, Trevor, where do you go? What do you give then?
Ask. I mean, you just have to ask the right questions, right? And I didn't know how to help job seekers, right? When I first started in 2015, I was not a job seeker expert, but I am now. 5 years later, right? You become what you focus on, right? Your focus becomes reality. So if you don't know how to help somebody, it's because you're not asking the right questions. Figure out, first of all, what's the problem? What are you trying to solve? Do they have a problem? Right? Why? I mean, you can't help somebody unless you know what the problem is. So figure out what's the problem, and then you reverse engineer it to figure out how you can provide solutions, right? Like you think about, I'm a big fan of the Shark Tank, and we actually have a Shark Tanker coming on our show tomorrow. Anybody here a fan of Shark Tank? Okay. So on the Shark Tank, they always have this business, right? The business didn't ever start until they were trying to solve a problem first, right? It was always a problem, and then they reverse engineered it to create a product or a service to create this business, right? It's the same thing when you're trying to help somebody. You have to figure out what's the problem, and then reverse engineer it to figure out what's the solution and how can you solve it.
Related to that, a lot of people might be networking and networking, meeting as many people as possible, but then take a look, step back and say, like, I don't know what the goal of this is, right? If I'm networking with someone outside of my industry, what's the goal? If it's somebody not in a company that I want to work for, what's the goal? If it's someone who's not directly going to help me get a job, or maybe who I can directly get a job, what's the goal? So how do you, Trevor, think about networking? Should somebody be super general about it, super broad, talk to anyone and everyone? Should I set parameters around the kinds of people I want to talk to? How do you think about that?
Oh, I love that question. So first of all, that's a mindset shift. Okay. This thing, we all know it, it changed the world, right? This thing absolutely changed the world. And I would say 15 years ago, yeah, networking was important, but not as important as it is today, because especially with careers in corporate America and the way that the jobs are going nowadays, like it is absolutely vital to your, you know, your success. Networking is so important to your success in life. It's a life skill. It's not just to get a job, it's a life skill. And so I think that if you have the mindset shift of, you know what, throughout my life, I am going to build, nurture, and add new connections into my life, like throughout my life. Yeah, you may not be at 100,000 overnight or whatever, you know, like it's not going to happen like that. But over a lifetime, you're going to start to build an audience. And anybody know that guy named Joe Rogan? Anybody ever heard of him? Was it like, I think he just got like $100 million deal from Spotify.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, maybe you don't land $100 million deal. Like that may not be your goal, but again, over a lifetime, right? Build an audience, because anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. You really can. Anybody can do this. You build an audience over a lifetime. And right now, guys, I'm going to tell you, you can monetize an audience. You might decide at a certain point, I'll leave corporate America. I don't want to go back. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to start my own business. It just opens up doors of opportunity that would never be there if you didn't have that going forward. So yeah, I would say connect with just about anybody, unless you feel like they are a fake profile. And a lot of people are going to disagree with this, right? So again, take whatever you think applies to you and works for you. In my opinion, I'm going to connect with everybody. And here's why. Because you never know how they can change your life or how you can change their life, right? One of two ways. I'll give you a perfect example. I was making content. I was doing daily videos. And then I stopped for a little season. I stopped making these videos. And I had a lady reach out to me and she said, "Why'd you stop?" And I said, I got busy, whatever, life, you know, I had whatever excuses I had. She said, "Why'd you stop?" She said, "You don't realize it, but one of your videos like kept me from committing suicide." Right? And this was what I call a window shopper. This person was a window shopper. They never liked, they never commented, they never engaged on any of the content ever, but they were consuming it. I was making an impact in her life, right? And it wasn't until I stopped that she engaged and she was like, "Why did you stop?" And that's when the light bulb kind of really went on in my mind, like how powerful this is and how powerful, like we have a responsibility. I feel like we have a responsibility. You have a microphone, you have a voice, like you have a responsibility. And so that's when the light bulb really clicked on. And you know what's funny about that lady? That lady, I went back and did some research. Originally, she was trying to sell me something on LinkedIn, where most people would have said block, most people would have delete, right? She was originally trying to sell me something, and I said, I said, yeah, I'll connect with you. Thanks, but no thanks. Right. And I didn't buy from her. And then she never engaged until years later. So that's a little story of mine, guys, that's personal to me because of that. And I think that we're here to change people's lives. Either you can do it, or they're there to change your life, one or the other.
Yeah, I think so much of the story of kind of being unemployed and looking for work is about building the habits that you are going to take into your next phase. So on the networking side of it, 3 years ago, the company I was working on crashed. I ended up being unemployed for 6 months. So throughout that, I started a podcast, which now continues to this day. I met, I don't know, 300 people in the 6-month period, many of which have carried over. I built health habits, many of which have carried over. So it's about building that routine. I want to give the next question, actually, if you're okay with it. Mauricio asked a good question in the chat. So if you're here, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question.
There she is.
Hello.
Hey, we can hear
you. I asked, I'm extremely introverted and communicating with people tires me out, and it's not my natural instinct to reach out to people. What should be my priorities and focus in terms of building an effective network that will be beneficial for
me and the network?
That.
Love that question. First and foremost, thank you for coming in. I know if you're an introvert and getting out and unmuting that mic
in public, yep,
right, could be a little bit of a thing. So I appreciate you doing that and stepping out of your comfort zone. That's a great question. So I will tell you that for being an introvert, you live in the best possible world to be in, to connect with a lot of people and to build a network as an introvert. Like, think about it. We all kind of like hide behind text nowadays, right? Like, this face-to-face stuff is happening less and less. I mean, look, we got people in the chat right now. You got comments, you got emails, you got text messages. Like, anything we can do to like further remove the human element. Like, that's the way society is going. Now, I'm an advocate for the opposite. I love the face-to-face, right? But the reason I'm saying all this is because you can hop in comments. You can add value on someone else's post. You can get in there and type and really, as an introvert, that's a lot easier than going to a face-to-face networking meeting or, something like this. Might be a little bit more uncomfortable. I think you could do really well in a live stream comments, like getting in those live stream comments and just like hyping people up. And I think you can still add a ton of value by doing that.
I want to echo that and say, first of all, I called on you and you self-proclaimed yourself as an introvert and you stood up and said something. So kudos. There's really great mediums now that you can use to share your personality, your story, your beliefs, your theories, and garner an audience around. I know people who have started podcasts. That's a place where you can talk about or talk to anyone you want and do so in a way that could be edited if you needed to and controlled. You could write. There's people who writing is there's all these like coding boot camps or design boot camps. And a huge part of that is the expectation to write one blog post every single week. And that's a medium where you could have a pen name if you want to. You can tie it to your LinkedIn if you want to. You can start your own blog if you want to. And they're really good places where you could build your brand, build your knowledge base, build your community in ways that aren't necessarily so outward.
I love that. That's great advice. I think that, producing content and one of the things I'll tell you is get out of your comfort zone, right? I don't know what the technical term is. I can't remember what the technical term is, but I'm like an introvert and an extrovert. I like my space. I like to be in my zone. I like, but I push myself actually out into the uncomfortable positions, because that's where the growth happens. If you really, 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 really want to grow, you've got to just embrace being extremely uncomfortable. I do things all the time that terrify me.
Give us an
You'll never
example,
know it.
Trevor. What's something you've done?
I mean,
What's something you've done that makes you uncomfortable?
Well, okay, so I have a huge fear of public speaking, and a lot of people don't know that. I terrified of it, right? And I battle it every day when I speak to groups, when I get on my show, when I do live events, when I, but you know what? What has happened is my comfort zone just is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What used to be extremely terrifying to me isn't now. It becomes less and less and less because you get practice, you start to build confidence. Like, it's funny, what used to terrify me back in the day, it's like no big deal anymore, right? You can't overcome those fears. And so now what really gets me is the big, huge, like live audiences. And I don't mean live on like LinkedIn or something like that. I mean like in-person, conference style, on stage, and you've got like hundreds of people, looking at you, lights, camera, action. Like, that still makes me uncomfortable, but in a great way, like in a super positive way. I love that. That's where my energy comes from. And I'm like, yes, I want to get on that stage so I can deliver and grow, and probably mess something up, because that's where you learn too, is when you fail, right? When you fall on stage.
Yeah.
If I could add something,
Yeah.
one of the things that I learned a long time ago, whenever I was really young, was I started coming out of my shell when I was in college. And the first things that I started to do was giving compliments to other people and making myself, as Trevor said, come out of my comfort zone by finding something that I could compliment someone else on that was very simple. And it really helped me learn how to not be afraid to speak up. And it also created an avenue for me to learn how to build relationships with other people by not having to ask them to be their friend. So people really respond, and I still do that a lot today. Whenever I meet someone or even a stranger, I might just tell them, hey, I really like, I really like the hat you're wearing. That's a cool hat. Or, hey, you've got a really pretty smile, that really caught my eye. Or, hey, I really like that shirt you're wearing. It's really nice. You don't even have to ask where they got it at. Very simple compliment. So maybe that's a way that you can learn to do that, even to complete strangers. I still find myself doing that today when I go into the store, when I go to Walmart. If I'm standing there next to somebody and I almost feel like I need to say something to that person. Maybe that's just because I've become more of an extrovert over time, but maybe that would be a way for you to learn to kind of come out of your comfort zone a little bit. I hope that helps.
Compliments are great. Adriel did that to me when we first hopped on this call. He said,
it was all a trick. It was a ploy.
He goes, where do you get that shirt, man? He's like, you always got these shirts and this and that. And I was like, Target. And, but no, he was giving me a compliment, making me feel good to hop on this call. Like, and totally, you're 100% right. Like, give a compliment. That's a giving, right? That's giving. And the more you give, the more you'll get. So it's a biblical principle, guys. You reap what you sow. If you sow good seed, you'll reap a good harvest. You don't always know when that harvest is going to come. You might be sowing seeds for years and never see it. And then all of a sudden, boom, something massive explodes in your life. And that's a God thing. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, but you planted the seed you've been planting, we're seeing right now with the Who You Know show, we're seeing things harvest that are just amazing, just awesome, awesome, awesome things. But we've been planting seeds the whole time, right? We've been planting seeds for 5 years, right? It's work. So I love what you said. The compliments are great. That's a good way to plant seeds.
Trevor, we talked a lot about mindset. We talked a lot about thinking things through, about finding the mindset that works for you, whether you want to be, build your brand or maybe do more one-on-one stuff. You also, in that same breath, talked about Joe Rogan and his $100 million. You've got a line that I like, or maybe a mindset exercise, which you call the $10 million mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that all came from when I got into the financial services industries. Guys, I'm going to tell you, when I first got in this business, it was rough for me. My first year was rough. I was sinking. I wasn't making no money. It's just like anybody. When you first get into a new business and you know, it's tough. And it was tough for me. And I felt like I was sinking. I felt like I was in quicksand. And the harder I struggled, the faster I was sinking. The reason is because I was focusing in the wrong areas. My focus was like, I got to that point where I was focusing on the money, and I began to start having like that commission breath, like, ugh. You know what I'm talking about? That guy, that sales guy that just, he just needs the sale. You can see desperation all over their face. You can see it, smell it, taste it. Ugh, nobody wants that, right? That was me, right? I was that guy because I was in that desperation. And like, there was one day I had to make a decision, right? To quit focusing on the outcome, right? I have no control over the outcome. Zero. Guys, you realize you have zero control over the outcome. If you're a job seeker, you have zero control whether or not that employer says yes or no. You have zero control over that. It's up to them to make that decision. What do you have control over? You have control over, practicing your interviews, putting in the activity, your follow-up. That's the stuff you have control over. So there was a day that I made a decision and I said, you know what? I'm focusing in the wrong area. My mindset isn't right. I said, you know what? I need to have a millionaire mindset. If I had $10 million in the bank and I wouldn't worry about the outcome. Think about it. If you had $10 million in the bank, you would never worry about the outcome. The outcome would be irrelevant. Who cares what the outcome is? Because I got $10 million in the bank. So that mindset kept me from worrying about or even thinking about that outcome. So what did I focus on? The activity. I focused on, and that's why, like I was talking with Adriel, in my mobile app, I have an activity tracker. I think the activity is one of the most important things. If you do consistent activity, right, it's going to lead to results. It will. Again, you plant those seeds, you're going to get a harvest. So that was the $10 million mindset. If you had $10 million in the bank, like think about that for a second, like really, really, really visualize it. $10 million in the bank. What would change about your job search? What questions would you be asking the interviewer? Would you care if they said no? Would you be a little bit more picky about what you were looking for? Like literally think about that. What would make you get out of bed and go to work? It would have to be something pretty freaking awesome. And like, you would be very specific. You'd be targeted. You'd be super targeted about what you want in your life if you got $10 million in the bank. So it's a different mindset. It's just different.
Yeah. I'm going to ask one final question. If you guys have questions, now's the time, throw them into the chat and we'll get them covered before we switch off to the networking components of web and networking. One of the top two components of this two-part series. Trevor, where I want to end is thinking about goals, right? When you are out of work it feels like there's only one goal to measure all of your success, all of your activities, all of your inputs, as Eric and I are talking about in the chat. You only have one goal to measure everything by, and that is, did I get a job today or did I not get a job today? And the hard thing about that is that most days you will not meet that goal.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
the
does
wrong
not
goal. That's the wrong goal for the day, for
talk
sure.
to me about goals.
That's the wrong goal. That's exactly what I was talking about. We're worried about the outcome, right? The end results, right? You're worried about, getting to the end. What you need to be worried about is all the little activity and all the little steps. Like, you're not ever going to get here if you don't do all of this. This is what you need to be worried about, all those little steps in between. So the activity is super important. Now, if that's why I'm putting it in my app. I've got a mobile app coming out, and there's going to be an activity tracker inside of it that is you're going to be able to go in and list your activity, right? I did this much, and you get points. And at the end of the day, if you got 25 points, that's a win, right? Based off of your activity, that's a win. Feel good. You get a little award, a little badge for the day, right? You do that consistently over a week, right? Over a month, like, that activity starts to snowball, and you'll get to that end result. But I think focusing on just the job alone, like the yes or no that you have no control over, you don't have any control over whether they say yes or no. You have zero control over that.
I have Alicia's in this chat here, and Alicia, believe it or not, but I've been quoting you since the time you and I first spoke, like a month ago, because you had this great line that you told me that sometimes you're not sure if you've had a good day or a bad day. Right? You do all the stuff, you network a bit, you go to an event, you go for a nice walk with your dog, and like, is that good or bad? Right? You don't have the same measurement tools that you do when you are employed. But
this is the same thing. Can I just speak to that? So the reason where I even got this activity tracker idea was when I first got into financial services. Look, every day I would wake up, I was unemployed. I would wake up, I got to get a client. I got to get somebody to become a client, right? In order to make any kind of living. So I would wake up and I would go network and I do all this activity and I make my phone calls and send out my emails. I do all this activity and I didn't have a result at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Right? No result at the end. I didn't make a client. Oh man, was it a good day or a bad day? I don't know. Feel lost.
Yep.
Right? But my one of my managing partners, he had this point sheet called the 25 point sheet. And, for every phone call and for every email, for every, interview and face-to-face meeting and networking meeting, like, you would get points. And at the end of the day, you log 25 points and you do that consistently and you don't stop. That was the other rule. You do not stop until you get 25 points. You don't stop. If it takes you 8 hours or 10 hours, you get 25 points. You put in the work, and that's the win. The 25 points was the win for the day. Because it's hard, because you don't have anything. You didn't, you know what I mean? Like, you got to have a win. So,
and as a part of that, I think that's so important. As a part of that, guys, for those who have been on Riveter or haven't been on Riveter, Riveter helps job seekers save money. But two of our most important categories are not about job seeking. It's about wellness and it's about education. In this period of time, you're not going to be successful in whatever your goal is, be it get a job or anything else, if you don't think about, what do I need to do for me to feel good today? Is that exercise? Is that socialize? Is that have a glass of wine with my spouse? Is that call somebody I love? Is that take a class? You got to think about your goals, and you got to set goals for all these areas of your life. And some people might manage in a spreadsheet. Some people might just do one thing a day. So do whatever works for you. Earlier we were talking about whether you want to be the kind of person who's extroverted, posting content, be like Trevor, break out of your shell, do whatever it takes, or if you want to be more intimate, constant one-on-one chats. This is the same thing. Figure out your personal goal setting strategy. What are the things that matter to you? What are the inputs you need to put in every day? One day at a time, Sam says, absolutely. Each day has its own start and its own finish. And sometimes you'll meet all your goals. Sometimes you'll get 70%. Sometimes you're going to watch a bunch of Netflix. And you know what? That's on my goal list too. I've been watching Queen's Gambit. Fantastic. Separate point. But set those goals for yourself.
Watch the Netflix after you hit your 25 points.
Yeah.
Get your 25, and that will be your win for the day. Like, okay, now I deserve the Netflix. I earned the Netflix.
Awesome. Trevor, well, I said it before when it was just you and I. Dallas Fort Worth is booked 8 days a week. I got feedback from the folks in the Dallas community that we have to thread the needle with Trevor, find him at exactly 3 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. Otherwise, he's taken elsewhere. So thank you so much for joining us. I learn a lot every time I watch your stuff. Don't leave, folks. You know, we got the networking thing coming up. But Trevor, where can people find you, the stuff you're working on? Where would you send in to get to know you and the Who You Know Network better?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I did put that link in the chat. And then our website is whoyouknow.show. So I'll type that in there too, but whoyouknow.show. And once you get there, we've got all kinds of training. We've got multiple courses, a lot of different things going on that you can plug into. And I'm going to really dive deep because it's important for me to really help to elevate that mindset. I know where you might be today, tomorrow, could be a dark day, right? I know it because we've lost people to the job search. And that's a mission that I'm on. I don't want to lose anybody. You know, I don't. I know what it's like. I have super empathy. And I want you to come connect with me. Come get in my programs. And I promise you, we got a lot of cool stuff. And it's all about elevating your mindset and showing you how to get seen and how to get noticed and how to get out of that black hole. And you're going to do it by building a community. You know, we've got a community, guys. So get involved in the community, and they're going to support you. They're going to help you. You know, look, I'll tell you what, collectively, we can do some things, right? Together, we all have a big network. Think about it, right? We have just us in this room right here. If we really put our mind to it, just our own networks, we could open so many doors. So come connect with me, and then we'll get the mobile app out to you as soon as it's out. It'll be out within about a month.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Trevor. Folks, so what's going to happen now is I just opened 2 breakout rooms. You're either Team Awesome or Team Rockstars. Don't be offended if you want it to be a rock star, but you're really awesome, or you're awesome, want it to be a rock star. Join, share with each other the best networking conversation you've had in the last couple of weeks and ideas about how to have more of those. And I'll pull everybody out in 20 minutes and we'll say our goodbyes. So I'll see you in those rooms.